Hello, good evening, all of you. In history of English literature, we're talking about how literature was developed, and in this sense, the best of my knowledge, you had dealing with the romantic poetry, and uh, still Robert Southey, about whom we had uh, studied in our last lecture, and we had talked about him. Um, I don't know whether how you had went through in the romanticism, but uh, as we know, that is romantic period in English literature begins with the publication of William Wordsworth and Samuel Coleridge lyrical ballads. Most of the time, question has been asked in both an certain net exam, the questions related romantic age, specifically the lyrical ballads. Okay. Uh, Even though it was roughly considered as the starting point of it, that is lyrical ballad, and the end with the accession of the Queen Victoria in 1837, and onwards this was considered as the Victorian age from 1837 to 1900. So as you just see, romantic period in the English literature come as an reaction to the rigid rule uh, observing kind of literature which was advocated by the writers like Dr. Samuel Johnson and Alexander Pope. They were the people who considered the role of the rule. Okay, I'm just using the word wisely. Role of the rules and regulation in the poetry. They were talking about the forms and types rather than feelings. So it was became a kind of dry kind of literature, and the people were getting bored of this kind of literature. They want something which will provide them a fresh energy, or something which will give them a refreshing kind of mood, let's say mood, or a refreshing kind of stuff to uh, study or to read in literature. And that's why these writers went back to the nature, and that's why the romantic age was considered, means romanticism as a literary and artistic movement started reaction against this age of enlightenment and its focus on reason and empirical thought. So romantic age uh, coincided with this revolution in French and America, and hence is also known as the age of revolutions. Okay, so this thing you might have an idea, but again, this would be beneficial for us to have an idea about this thing, that romantic age is coincidentally come as a parallel to the revolutions in France and America, and hence is also called as the age of revolutions. Okay. stage of revolution. Revolutions. Yes, there is plenty of. So the French Revolution was the battle to achieve equality and review oppression. Okay, it was a revolt against the monarchist dictatorship of the Catholic King Louis the 16th. We have an idea about this one. Under his rule, the society was confined with the perimeters defined by the kings with unfair laws and unequal distribution of resources. Uh, I know that these all things we have an idea, but just I'm telling you it again. Uh, French Revolution began in 1789 with the meeting of the States General, and the king was brought to the trial in December of 1792 and executed on 21st January 1793. That is the end of uh, French Revolution. But the effect of French Revolution did not confine itself only to France, but it also sowed seeds of revolutionary favor in England. People of Britain agitated for reform in their own country, and mm, poets such as William Blake, William Wordsworth, and S.T. Coleridge supported the revolution and the ideals of what? Liberty, equality, and fraternity. That is espoused. खरा twist यानंतर आहे. Okay. However, when the hopes and expectations it had offered for political and social change demolished, romantic poets used the spirit of revolution to help characterize their poetic philosophies. As the revolution increasingly turned violent and descend into the madness of the reign of terror, many who had initially greeted it with enthusiasm, like Wordsworth and Coleridge, who come to regard their early support as, in Coleridge's words, a squeaking baby trumpet of sedition, had second thought. So that is the thing we can find that mm, the things has changed after the revolution. The diverse political changes and the triumph of democracy in the period ended with the passage of the Reform Bill in 1832. So you might have heard about the Reform Bill. Um, there is the representation of the People Act 1832, also known as the Reform Act. It has made a long-lasting change. Was an act of parliament that introduced wide-ranging changes to the electoral system of England and Wales. Okay, according to its preamble, the act was designed to take effectual measures for correcting diverse abuses that have long prevailed in the parliament. So it has come to the electoral process or electoral systems. and Wales. So these things we must an idea. Literary background. We just try to find out the literary background to this age. The German poet Friedrich Schlegel is given credit for using the term romantic first time to describe literature of the first time. This one, he defined it as a literature depicting emotional matter in an imaginative form. So, the literature depicting emotional matter in imaginative form, that is the romantic literature. Okay. F.L. Lucas, in his book The Decline and Fall of the Romantic Ideals, written in 1948, gave around 1196 definitions of romanticism. Okay, 11,396 definition of romanticism. Who? F.L. Lucas, in his book The Decline and Fall of the Romantic Ideal. The American scholar Evo Lovejoy stated that the word romantic has come to mean so many things that by itself it means nothing at all. Okay, so the romantic movement in literature is characterized by its shift from structured, intellectual, reasoned approach of the 70s to use of the imagination, reason, freedom of thought, and expression, and an idealization of nature. So, on the one hand, we have structured, intellectual, reasoned approach of 17th century, and the other hand, we can see the imagination, freedom of thought and expression, and an idealization of nature. On the other hand, it is the which is considered as the characteristics of the romantic age. So I don't know whether I have to go more with this one, or you people have an idea about this thing. But when you talk about the romantic age, there is several generations of the romantic age, where we can find that uh, they have something with to do things. In that case, I would like to talk about this first and second generation romantic poets or romantics. Okay, in this case, we can say that these romantic poets are divided into two major groups. First one is first generation romantics, William Blake, William Wordsworth, S.T. Coleridge, and Southey. And second generation romantic, we have Lord Byron, P.B. Shelley, and John Keats. So, difference between these two generations was that the first generation writing were inspired by the Battle of Bastille and the French Revolution. So, the writers who belong to the first generation, they have some kind of inspiration to write down the literature, write down the poetry. That is Battle of Bastille and the French Revolution. So, they have this source of uh, their feelings, their thoughts, their imagination, and they wrote at a time of revolutionary favor. So when there was a kind of a revolution waves were get moving at that time, these writers who belong to the first generation romantics, they have written their literature. Okay. On the other hand, when the second generation of romantics started writing, war had already ended, but Britain was beset by different social and political tensions, which led to the Peterloo Massacre. So these things These all three of them had contact with this radical group who met to discuss this revolutionary ideas of the Godwin and Saint. Among the second generation romantics, Byron and Shelley lived in exile while Keats was attacked in term of class. I come back to this point later, but let's talk about the first generation romantic. We already had talked about the several ones. I would like to go with the William Blake. Okay, one of the famous revolutionary writer of the age, William Blake. And here we have his biography in front of you. Have a look into it, and then we'll discuss about his writing, his literature. So he was an English poet, painter, and printmaker, born in London. He's known for the visual arts of the Romantic age. See, he's known for the visual arts of the Romantic age. The 19th century scholar William Rossetti characterized him as a glorious luminary. Okay, glorious luminary. He was apprenticed to an engraver. He used to draw drawing of the monuments of Westminster Abbey. He was greatly influenced by the Gothic style. I will come to point this later. What is Gothic style? What is Gothic literature? But yeah, he was the one who was greatly influenced by the Gothic style. A collection of his verse and prose collected in poetical sketches by his friends in 1783. It was the first printed work of Blake. Which one? Poetical sketch. He earned his living as a professional engraver for at least 20 years. So the first 20 years of his career, he was a professional engraver. He married this Catherine Boucher. She was illiterate, daughter of gardener, and she died childless in 1831. Blake wrote a satire, An Island in the Moon, in 1785, in which he ridiculed those distinguished people whom he had made during the year 1793 and 87 and disgusted Blake. In 1788, he began to experiment with a new method of printing from these East copper plates, which developed with the production of songs of innocence, with a lyrical poem uh, East on copper, with decoration colored by hand, which will sold for a future. He completed his series of 537 watercolor designs for Edward Young's Night Thoughts. His significant poem is for the four Zoas. You might have heard about these four Zoas. I will come to it back later. In 1784, he set up a print shop with a friend and former fellow apprentice James Parker. He published his most popular Song of Innocence in 1789 and Song of Experience in 1794. Both books of songs were having an illuminated copper manuscript finished by hand in watercolor. Yeah, in whole life he stayed outside England only for 3 years in Felpham, where he worked with William Harley. S.T. Coleridge was lent a copy of Song of Innocence and Experience considered him man of genius. Robert Southey attended Blake's exhibition and included the Mad Song from Poetical Sketches in his miscellany, The Doctor. His final year were full of great poverty, but were cheered by a group of younger artist friends who called themselves the Ancients. So these are some things which were associated with the William Blake, and we can see that William Blake's writing was appreciated by the many writers and specifically philosophers. I come to this point later, but I would like to talk about his several famous poems. One of them is the lamb, and then the tiger. But Blake's mythical universe is the one thing which we must have an idea or which we must have discussed. So Black mythology is based on the four Zoas who form the four aspects of Albion, primeval man. According to Ed Burian, Albion's four parts of divine energies are called by Blake and Zoas, and his entire mythology is about their interaction and their epic struggle to reunite. So, Blake derived the term from this Greek root for alive, living. That is the eternal part of man, or as a Black called them, lives in eternity. The four Zoas are named Thermus, Urizen, Lua, and Urthona, and respectively represent the body, mind, emotion, and spirit of Albion. Each of the Zoas also has an emanation or a female portion. The maternal union is an emanation from Thermus. The celestial Ahania is an emanation from Urizen. The seductive Vala is an emanation from Lova. And the musical Intharmon is an emanation from Law. We'll come to it one by one. Hmm. Uh, as we just go forward and talk about this thing, that is the literature of William Blake, we find that his own was examiner by the Lehand, and he was assistant himself, and and a symbolic work, Jerusalem. Blake was asked to make first full biography by Alexander Christie. He refers to him as Thomas Stein. Scholars define poetic imagination in his biography Eritrea as a reflection in the finite mind of the eternal act of creation in the infinite I am. These are the major works and poetry of William Blake. Important. An experience, 1799. People might have an idea what Song of Innocence. Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience were combined. It was titled Song of Innocence and the Experience of the two contrary states of the human soul. It appeared in two stages. First copies were printed and originated by Blake in 1779. In 1794, some other poems were also included. Innocence and experience are a definition of consciousness that rethink Milton's existential mythic state of paradise and the fall. So it also has the base of Song of Innocence and Song of Experience. It has the base of Milton's existential mythic states of paradise and the fall. We have seen this thing in the Paradise Lost, and the same point was raised by William Blake, but with a different angle in different manner. The title Counter state means contrasted title in the poem as in innocence, infant joy, inexperience, infant sorrow. In innocence, the lamb, inexperience, the fly, and the tiger. So, it's different. That is, the title is counter state means contrasted titles in the poem. So, the poem from Songs of Experience was set to music in 1965 by Benjamin Britten. In 1965, only 28 poems were published during his lifetime and 6 appeared posthumously in Song of Experience. As we move and try to find out Song of Innocence, it is a complete work of Blake with first printed in 1789. It is collection of 19 poems. Of 8 poems. Song of Innocence, more or less a child's world which is full of simplicity, purity, and happiness, where the adult world is misery and guilt sometimes intrude here. From a child's world, fear is completely absent, and when danger threatens, a parent figure appears to console and comfort. The first one in the collection is Introduction, in which Blake thinks William Blake, okay, he thinks himself as a shepherd with a pipe playing songs of joy in the open country where he sees a child, the cloud. It's like calling clouds come home again, but it has the different kind of connotation given by the William Blake. The poem suggests the child Chris speaking from the heaven. So he just tried to give some religious touch to this poem, and we can find that succeed in it. Next one is the poem of Song of Innocence. These are all the poems. One of the my famous is the Lab. The Chimney Sweeper is the other famous one. Introduction: the shepherd, the echoing green, the lamb, the little black boy, the blossom, the chimney sweeper, the little boy lost, the little boy found, laughing song, a cradle song, the divine image, holy Thursday, night, spring, nurse song, infant joy, a dream, another sorrow in the voice of black. These are all the poems of Song of Innocence. Okay. In it, there's a one thing that I would like to recite in front of you, that is Song of Innocence. Like Song of Innocence was consisting of 19 poems with first published in 1789, before, followed by Song of Experience in 1794, and the volume contained 26 poems. Uh, in this collection, there is one famous poem, that is The Lamb. Little lamb who make thee, little lamb who make thee, dost thou know who made thee? Gave thee life and bid thee feed by the stream of other the mead, gave the clothing of delight, softest clothing woolly bright, gave thee such a tender voice, making all the whales rejoice. Little lamb who will rejoice, little lamb who made thee, dost thou know who made thee? Little lamb, I'll tell thee, little lamb, I'll tell thee, he is called by thy name, for he calls himself a lamb, he is meek and he is mild. He became a little child, a child and thou a child. We are called by his name. Little lamb, God bless thee. Little lamb, God bless thee. Okay, even though you can find this very small poem, but it has a very philosophical touch. Okay, it's talking about the positivity in the human mind and its connection with the God, and that's why this is considered as one of the important poems in the Song of Innocence. Okay, Song of Experience. As we move forward and see this Song of Experience in 1794, it was a combination of the four song of poetry collection of 26 poems, forming the second part of the like Song of Innocence. Now, these poems were published in 1794. Poems from Song of Experience, like Introduction, Earth's Answer, The Cloud and the Fable, Holy Thursday, The Little Gift, The Little Girl, Lost, The Little Girl, Found, The Overlap. 7. The Visions of the Daughters of Albion. That might have you might have been through this. You might have been. The Visions of Daughters of Albion, the poem protesting against the rigid sexual morality of the time, where the daughters of Albanians are English enslaved by conventional morality. It was influenced by Mary Wollstonecraft's teaching of the rights of women. This one, the vision of the daughters of Albion. In this line, okay, you can find the two great references. Don't forget it. Mary Wollstonecraft, the vindication of the right of women, was one of the revolutionary work of the period, and is considered as the starting period of the feminism, or we can say the first wave feminism. Uh, the daughters of Albion was inspired by this book of Mary Wollstonecraft. It is a visual poem and also central character. In this Blake has used Plato's allegory of the cave as a theme. You might have heard about this cave story of the great Plato. William Blake has used it to poem for the vision of daughters of Albion. The next poem we have is America, a Prophecy. This is the poem which deals with American independence. Then we have this Going Green. It is a record of a happy day, but it is also a symbolic presentation of the day of emotions and the Going Green is a record of the happy day, but it is also a symbolic representation of the day of emotions from sunrise to sunset. So a great kind of imagination we can find over here in the writings of this person, William Blake. Uh, when you talk about this Echoing Green, this was a poem remind of the biblical picture of the Adam and Eve. And on this note, we have seen that the person from the contemporary era is recorded of a happy day, but is also the symbolic representation of the days of innocence from the sunrise to sunset. So the personal growth of person lamb is considered the lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world. The innocent lamb, the life, the this love and tenderness we can find the lamb. The chimney sweeper and the tiger, both are famous poems. I would like to talk about his London and the marriage of Hill and Heaven. It's the title of two poems of Blake, one is mentioned in the Song of Innocence, and the other
sweeper. It is set against the dark background of child labor that was prominent in 18th and 19th century. At the age of 4 and 5, boys were sold explicitly due to their small size. Here are some opening lines of the poem in the sweeper. When my mother died, I was very young, and my father told me while he ate my tongue. Tiger was the next poem. This poem was published as a part of Song of Experience in 1794. It is a sister poem to the Lamb and Song of Innocence. Both are the reflection of similar idea, but from a different perspective. The lamb brings innocence, while the tiger presents superiority, primal ferocity, aesthetic beauty, and primal ferocity. These are the opening lines of the tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night. What immortal hands are these? Footprints that share sequence portrait in a grand couplet, but very philosophical quote. The marriage of heaven and hell. Have a look into it and then we'll discuss his marriage of heaven and hell along with the Milton poem. Now biblical prophecy. So again we can find the role of biblical prophecy over here. So the work was composed between 1790 and 93. The title is the ironic reference to Emanuel Swedenborg's theological work Heaven and Hell. Again, we can find its connection with Adam and Eve of Paradise Lost. Yeah. So, as we just go forward and try to see this work, the marriage of heaven and hell, like prophetic, prophetic prose poems. It is an ironic reference to Strindberg's theoretical work. As I told you, this work is written except for the opening argument and Song of Liberty. So, Song of Liberty, the argument was written in prose, author was or this book is written in prose, but these two are written in prose. Okay. Verse. The book describes the first visit to hell, the device used by Dante in Divine Comedy. Okay. So it describes this first visit to hell, a device adopted from this Dante Inferno and Milton's Paradise Lost. So again we can find this from the or the writings which were considered as the masterpiece of the period, and what we can find the amalgamation of the thoughts of these what we can call the ancient writers, or so one who we can call them the senior to the William Blake, but we can find how he just made it by combining these two, like Dante's Inferno and Paradise Lost by John. Nothing to go and talk about, but Adolf Huxley, the dose of perception title is taken from the Marriage of Heaven and Hell in this poem, like develop the idea of the prolific and devoured. Prolific and devoured. Great poem. You can go and have a look into it. Milton's a poem in two books. It was book one and book two can talk. Here it was epic poem. Milton is an epic poem by Blake, written and between 1804 to 1810, and hero is John Milton, who written from Heaven and Blake, which showed the to correct his own error. So we can find the imagination over here that John Milton come back to the earth, come back on the earth, and he just collaborated with the Blake, and tried to some version to read, and that's why he is written from the Heaven and Blake to explore the, yeah, this is very great line, that is to explore the relationship between living writers and their predecessors, the exploration between the living writers and their predecessors. This is the kind of imagination we can find over here. And to undergo a mystical journey to correct his own spiritual errors. So whatever spiritual errors made by the Johnson, he come back to the come back on the earth, and he tried to correct it with the help of our hero, that is the William Blake. That is the story of Milton. Okay. Very important point. Look this one. Most of the time you have the question on this Vala or the four Zoas. Okay. Vala or four Zoas. It is an incomplete prophetic book by Blake, beginning in 1977. The titular main characters of this book are the four Zoas: Jonah, Urizen, Lua, and Thomas. That is Ahania is the wife of Urizen. I already had told about this one, so I'm not going that much deep. But I would like to just give the brief about this one. They were created by the Hall of Albion Greek mythology. It consists of 9 books referred to as Nile. Okay, and this one Blake intended the book to a summary of his mythical universe, but dissatisfied and he abandoned the effort in 1887, leaving it unfinished. The final night describes loss, witnessing a vision of crucifixion at the hands of Satan and the four Zuas from the four aspects of the body, mind, emotion, and spirit. And this is called as the Black's mythological universe. Okay, this is called as the not Black Blake, sorry, William Blake's mythological universe. Then his poem Jerusalem was one of the famous. The Book of Ahania, the Book of Urizen. Uh, yeah, let's talk about political sketches because these other ones are the part of his Blake mythological universe. Uh, Poetical sketches सगळ्याच गोष्टी मी सांगितल्या तर तुम्ही काय करणार ना so just go and have look into it. Okay, most of the time we have William Blake mythological universe, and these four zoas are very important, like the Urizen, um, Thomas. Thomas was the first one, Urizen was the second one, then Lova was the third one, and Lothar Ursonov fourth one, and respectively Thomas was representing and strength, then Urizen respect the intellectual reason, then Lova was represent love and passion, and Lothar Ursona it talks about the imagination. Okay, hope it is getting my point. So these four universes are the very important. Several times question has been asked on the black black mythological universe in both state and net exam. Hope you just get my point. With this, mm, we had whose writer has lit. Hope you just give me all things. William Hazlitt. I don't know whether to start with the William Hazlitt or uh, let's talk about the other one. But okay, it's always better to just move forward. William Hazlitt. So I know that most of us have an idea about the William Hazlitt. He's famous for his uh, literary criticism and essays, for his humanistic essays and literary criticism. He was a painter. The first published work of Hazlitt was later printed in the Shrewsbury Chronicle when he was 13 years old. He was hired by the Morning Chronicle in 1812 as a reporter. He began to contribute to the so he wrote for Champion as well in 1814. Hazlitt admired all poet except Shakespeare. So there were several haters of the Shakespeare. the great Shakespeare. One of them is this person, William Hazlitt. But the criticism made by William Hazlitt is most of the time we can find true, and his points were valid. So uh, he began to contribute to the quarterly Bloomberg Review Committee first. 15. In 1817, a series of Hazlitt essays that had appeared in the Examiner in a regular column called the Round Table. Okay, this is a very important point which people must know about this one. That his essays were published in uh, has appeared or not published actually appeared written in the Examiner in a regular column called the Round Table. Okay, it also includes few contributions from Leigh Hunt. Total essays were 52, 40 by Hazlitt and 12 by Hunt. Okay, most of the time we know that we have the question on these two people, George Orwell's political essays, and uh, this person, William Hazlitt's political essays. Okay, so it's not that much good thing to go away from it. So in 1825, his Spirit of the Age was published, in which he condemned Robert Southey for his abandonment of political radicalism. So when we talk about the William Hazlitt, we can find he has the mind of the reporter person who had a great radical thinking uh, along with the uh, great writing sense. This is thing we can consider about William Hazlitt. म्हणजे कसं असतं की काही काही लोकांकडे म्हणजे याच्यात अर्धी गोष्ट असते तर अर्धी नसते. लाईक कोणाकडे क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग असतं तर तसं त्यांना राईट लिहिता नाही येत. बट ही वॉज द पर्सन, या William Hazlitt, that he has a great competence in all things. So that's why whenever we go and talk about William Hazlitt, his essays are too totally differentiate from the other one. ओके, त्या केसमध्ये जर का बोलायचं झालं तर आजच्या काळामध्ये योग्य नाही होणार, पण करायची पण नाहीये. तसं आपण म्हटलं तर एक व्यक्तिमत्व आहे की जे अजून पण ज्यांना आपण असं कम्पेअर नाही करणार मी, पण आपण म्हणू शकू की ते त्या कॅटेगरीमध्ये येतात. ओके, मीन्स आपण जेव्हा गिरीश कुबेर यांचे त्यांचे तुम्ही पुस्तकं वाचा आणि त्यांचे अग्रलेख वगैरे जे आहेत ना ते पण वाचा, जे ते एडिटोरियल लिहितात लोकसत्तामध्ये ते पण वाचा. तुम्हाला कळेल की दिस द पर्सन हु जस्ट वेंचर्ड इन दी ऑल रिव्हर. कुठला पण विषय सांगा त्या विषयामधलं इतकं डीप नॉलेज त्याच्याकडे ते कसं काय, दॅट इज द वन थिंग. आणि दुसरी गोष्ट ती मांडायची पद्धत ती पण त्यांची खूप छान. म्हणून जर काय तसं वाचायचं असलं तर यू मे गो अँड वर्क ऑफ गिरीश कुबेर. दुसरा एक व्यक्ती मला म्हणजे आपण त्यांची नाहीच करू शकत, पण that is the person who also had the same kind of quality, that is Prahlad Teshwar, one of the great personalities. So ते ह्या लोकांना मी बोलतो कारण की आपण ह्या सगळ्यांना एका पंक्तीत बसवू शकतो. 1825 in 1825 he has written the Spirit of Ages. His characters of Shakespeare's play is a collection of the critical essays on the drama of Shakespeare. He also wrote against P.B. Shelley in 1818 titled Lectures on the English Poet. Hazlitt took further said The only person I ever known who answered to the ideas of man, of genius, after this reading lyrical ballad of Wordsworth, has it felt the sense of a new style and a new spirit in poetry came over me. These are his major works, but Table Talk was one of the famous, one of the great in today's scenario. The Annals of the Peria series lectures chiefly on the dramatic lectures of the age of Elizabeth, the plain speaker, political essays, biography of Napoleon, characters of Shakespeare's play, Shakespeare's female characters, Indian jugglers, one of the famous one. Let's talk about his Table Talk. It is a collection of the essay by Hazlitt, originally published in 2 volumes. First of which appeared in 1821. The essay deals with topics such as art, literature, philosophy. The essay deals with the analysis of these and colors. So hope you just got these all points. Okay. I think we had talked about all of the important poets from age. So it is not bad to move forward and talk about uh, novels. So novels writers who belong to this age, specifically novelists, you can call them novelists. uh, Fanny Burney, Walter Scott, Maria Edgeworth, and famous Jane Austen. Famous Jane Austen, Thomas Dickens, Charles Lamb, Walter Scott, William Hazlitt. These are considered the prose writer of the Romantic Age. We already had discussed them, so I don't feel to just go with them again. But in that case, we'll start with the major novelist of the Romantic Age, and I would like to start with the great Jane Austen. We have this time. I don't know if we have started today or take time and go further. Uh, Talk about her in tomorrow's lecture. Do the thing. Just have a look on her, read it, and we'll discuss it later.